Hello everyone, and welcome to the debut of #OnwardLebanon, a show to air monthly here on Lebanon Channel 6. I am your host, Todd Yohe, and I serve the Lebanon community as the superintendent of the Lebanon City School District. The new show, #OnwardLebanon, is designed to provide viewers with an insight to the Lebanon schools, its people, its students, and its programming. In today's first segment, I will be meeting with School Treasurer Eric Sotzing to discuss Issue 9, a renewal of an operating levy that's upcoming on the March ballot. And in segment 2, I will sit down with former teacher and veteran school board member Esther Larson. So welcome, Eric Sotzing, to #OnwardLebanon. It's great to have you here. And as a little bit of an introduction to folks, you serve as the Chief Financial Officer of the school district, the CFO, and handle all things with budget and financing and expenses and so on. And you and I are really the only two positions that are hired directly by the Board of Education. Boards of Education hire the superintendent, and they hire the treasurer. You've been in this position in Lebanon now for how many years?
12 years.
So 12 years, so you are well in tune to Lebanon schools and the Lebanon community. And in a future show, I would like to sit down and talk a little bit about the role of the treasurer and the CFO duties and responsibilities. But for today, we have a very important issue coming up in a couple of months. Coming up on the March primary ballot is a renewal levy for the school district, an operating levy. And it is Issue 9. It has been assigned an issue number, Issue 9. And that levy provides about $4.2 million in funding for the school district. And so when was that levy originally passed?
This levy was originally passed as an emergency levy in 2005. And it's been renewed every 3 years. The duration of this levy is a 3-year levy. So every 3 years from that point forward, it has been renewed by the community.
So it was originally passed in 2005 as new revenue.
Correct.
And it was a 3-year levy. It's remained a 3-year renewal levy, and it's been approved every 3 years since. And so 2020 is the next time for the community to renew. So can you tell me a little bit about a renewal levy and what that means?
Renewal levy generates the same amount of money that it was originally placed on the ballot when it was first passed. So that's a really important concept for the voters, that it is the same amount of money, but for them, it is no increase in taxes. So it renews the exact amount of money that was on the ballot previously, and it's important for the finances of the school district for us to continue that revenue stream.
So in 2005, that levy generated how much money?
$4.2 million.
And 3 years later, when it was renewed for the first time, it raised how much money?
$4.2 million.
And if it is approved in March, it raises how much money?
Once again, $4.2 million.
And so the levy has been raising $4.2 million every year since 2005. That is part of the operating budget of the Lebanon City School District. Correct?
Represents approximately 10% of the overall budget.
Yeah, good point. Represents about 10% of the overall budget. And you mentioned that it will not increase property taxes. Has it ever increased property taxes since it's been passed?
It has not.
2005?
It has not.
So people have renewed it every 3 years with no increase in their property taxes.
Correct.
And it always raises $4.2 million.
Correct.
Okay. So there is a difference, though, that I think is important for people to understand. When that levy was passed by our voters in 2005, what was the millage rate?
The millage rate in 2005 was 6.5 mils when it was originally passed. And now it has rolled back to 4.1 mills.
And why has that happened?
Because what occurs over time within the school district is property values increase. But this levy generates the same amount of money every time. So in order for that to occur, the rate must change or roll back based upon those property taxes. So interestingly enough, on this issue, compared to last year, this will actually be less money for the taxpayer than what it was previously.
And so when it was originally passed, it was 6.5 mills.
Correct.
And now that it's renewing in 2020, the millage is down to 4.1 mills.
Correct.
Which is a great example of something called House Bill 920. And I thought it was important to talk about that, because had the school been able to increase revenue at that 6.5 mil rate during the renewals, then we probably would not have had to be on the ballot for new revenue
nearly as often.
Nearly as often, because
correct.
we would have received
seen
a slight
some
increase.
increases. Correct.
And so people may have heard us talk about House Bill 920 and how that impacts schools. And I just think this is a good, real example of the impact of House Bill 920 on the ability of school districts to raise revenue and to keep up with expenses.
Correct.
I mean, that's really what it's about. All right, well, good. I appreciate you explaining that. You mentioned that issue 9 is a renewal levy. But I think for a lot of taxpayers, they're looking at the fact that our community very graciously and generously passed a new operating levy just last November.
Correct.
To generate additional revenue for the school district. Why isn't that enough to sustain the district? Why do we need to come back in March?
Well, expenses rise in the school district. And as we demonstrated with this levy first passing in 2005, many of the revenue sources don't increase over time. In fact, they're rolled back based upon House Bill 920 that we talked about. But our bills and the payroll, the lights, the electric, just like your home bills go up over time. And that's why this is important to have the new issue was passed to deal with that. This one simply continues the revenue stream that was in the past, and that continues going forward. And on this particular issue, it is, as you said, a renewal, which is no increase in taxes.
And so I think it's important for people to understand that the $4.2 million that is raised by this levy, and has been since 2005, is part of the operating budget of the district currently, and has been for 15 years. And the levy that was passed in November is additional revenue that was needed because, as you said, expenses increase, but our revenue is fairly flat funded. And so, there really is no relationship.
They're completely unrelated.
They're completely unrelated.
The one continues the revenue stream that's been in the past. The one that was passed previously in November was new money based upon those increases.
Yeah. So I've heard people ask the question, well, why didn't you ask for more money in November? In other words, if you needed to turn around and run a levy in March, why didn't you just run a greater levy in November? But that's not how it works, because they're not related.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the details of this levy. So if passed in March, it will be set to expire again in 2023.
Correct.
And that's important because at that point in time, that levy expiration is going to align with the expiration of the levy just passed in November.
Correct.
And why is that important?
Because we have looked at a strategy over time in order to combine levies to hopefully reduce the number of levies that are placed in front of the voters and limit Ballot fatigue. Every time you go in front of the voters to approve an issue, certainly that has major implications to the district, but it's one more time that you're there, that you're asking for additional money. So if we can combine those two, we're hopefully that we can have less issues going forward as we combine issues in the future. And that's really a strategy that we've been looking at for a number of years to continue that process.
So levy fatigue is a real thing.
It is.
Even if it's just a renewal, even if it doesn't increase property taxes, it's still an issue. So it looks like the school district is on the ballot. It's not every year,
right.
But it seems like
it's often. It is often.
It's often, and so there is some levy fatigue, I think, that happens with our voters. There's levy fatigue that happens with you and I,
absolutely.
Administration and the board, because there's a lot that goes into to running a levy. But I think it's what we need our taxpayers to know is that we're working on that, and we're aligning future levy renewals to be able to combine them.
Correct.
With no increase in property taxes, no increase in revenue. It won't increase revenue. But what it will do is spread the time between renewing levies so that we're not on the ballot
so often. Which it's important to note that's a relatively new change that has occurred within the last couple of years to allow us to do that. So often one of the questions I get is, why didn't we do it sooner?
Sure.
Well, we couldn't. So when those laws changed to be able to do that, now's when we looked at that strategy to move forward.
Right. There's another very important reason for our taxpayers to understand about this renewal levy. Because it was passed originally in 2005, it falls under an old piece of legislation regarding the homestead exemption.
Homestead and rollback exemption.
And rollback.
Correct.
Which is
12.5%.
So 12.5%, which is a taxpayer incentive. It's a taxpayer protection.
Right. It's a reimbursement that's done by the state of Ohio to fill that gap.
Right. So a few years back, they changed that legislation and they eliminated the homestead and rollback reimbursement. So levies that were passed since that change in law now no longer have it, that 12.5%. But any levy that was passed prior to is grandfathered in.
And maintains that.
And maintains it even when it's renewed.
Correct. As long as it's renewed.
As long as it's renewed. So if the levy does not pass in 2020, if the levy does not patch in March or at some other time in 2020, what happens to that 12.5% rollback?
12.5% rollback reimbursement from the state is eliminated. So that part goes away. And then to replace the levy that would be to generate the income that's needed to operate the school district, the new levy would not have that component, which would make it 12.5% more expensive to local taxpayers. So it's an important concept that our community, I believe, is very well educated with renewals for us to continue that going forward.
I would agree with you. The community is and very supportive. Has been
very supportive, absolutely.
Of that. So if this $4.2 million would need to be replaced after 2020, the millage is not going to be 4.1 because the district would have to account for that 12.5%, 12.5% rollback. So it would be at a minimum 12.5% more.
Correct.
Higher.
Exactly.
Correct? All right, good.
Directly to the taxpayer.
Sure. When's Election Day?
Election Day is Tuesday, March 17th.
March 17th, and we certainly want to encourage everybody to go out and exercise
your right.
Your right to vote. If people want additional information about Issue 9, they can follow us on our Facebook page.
Absolutely.
At Lebanon City Schools. They certainly can contact the treasurer's office or the office of the superintendent. Directly. And we certainly will be putting out information about the levy, frequently asked questions, and articles that will go out to our voting public.
Always encourage individuals, if they have questions, to call.
Good. Will you come back at some point in time? We'll just talk more about the role of the treasurer and finances.
Absolutely. Would love the opportunity.
Oh, great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Some things in your medicine cabinet are more dangerous than others. When it comes to prescription drugs, opioid pain medicines can be addictive and even deadly. Half the people who misuse prescription pain medicines get them from a friend or family member. Be part of the solution. Go through your medicine cabinets, drawers, anywhere you keep unused opioid pills, patches, or syrups. Find out how to dispose of them safely. Visit fda.gov/drug disposal.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund reading.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
If you want to be a parent, it doesn't matter how you play, what you wear, how you dance, or even what direction life takes you. You just need to be there. You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care don't need perfection. They just need you.
Welcome back to #OnwardLebanon. My guest in segment number 2 is Esther Larson. Esther, a longtime teacher in the Lebanon City School District and a veteran member of our school board, and just recently reelected to her 4th term as a board member, which means you've been a board member for how long?
Well, the 3 terms, it was 12 years, so I'm starting my 13th year. I hope it's still good luck. And I've been very fortunate. I appreciate the community support.
Well, I think the 13th year is certainly good luck for the community.
Well, thanks. I hope so.
And prior to being elected to the school board, you served as a kindergarten teacher for many years here in Lebanon. How many years did you teach?
Well, 25 that I was in kindergarten. I taught junior high for a while too, so I had 32 altogether. And I figured out with the years I went to school here, plus the board and teaching, this is my 58th year being connected with Lebanon Schools.
Wow, that's amazing. That's
maroon and white is really strong.
That is a great legacy, and particularly when you multiply that times the number of lives that you have touched as a teacher and as a board member, it's really incredible the impact that one person can have.
Well, I hope it's been positive
on a community. I do.
I loved my job.
I do believe it has, and I think the fact that you're on your 4th elected term as a school board member communicates that. So, how did teaching prepare you for service as a board member?
First of all, patience and willingness to listen and compromise, and talking with parents during that time, working with administration during that time. All of that was and being a parent myself, and now being a grandparent with children in the district, all of those have certainly had an impact.
Sure, and so you mentioned things like patience and communication and so on, all important for the classroom.
Absolutely.
And has translated and served you well as a school board member.
Yes, it has.
Do you feel like being a teacher for 32 years gives you a different perspective or a unique perspective as a board member?
Well, I think it certainly gives me more of a background of what the teachers are going through and what they continue to go through, and it's certainly changed from a lot from when I started my career. The pressures that are on them. While I was teaching, I was also president of the Teachers Association, so that gave me insight into negotiations from both sides of the table now, and I think that has also been very valuable as a school board member.
So you mentioned that you served for a long time as a member of the Teachers Association, which means you were, part of contract negotiations and employer issues that come about during that time. But in the role of a school board member, it is sort of the other side of that.
Yeah, some of them
coin.
say I went to the dark side.
But having been on that other side of the table, I'm
I
sure
understand their
has
concerns.
been very helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because you do get a different perspective than someone from the business world or someone outside of the educational field.
And I'm sure being a board member has created a new perspective of
absolutely
the side not necessarily seen or understood by
you
a
definitely
teacher.
have to look at the total picture, the big picture, concerns for the district and the finances and the limited finances, and also keep in mind that taking care of our employees in the right manner.
What do you think has been your most memorable moment or moments as a Lebanon School Board member?
Well, the very first meeting where I was president, I got yelled at from someone in the audience. But other than that, what's most memorable is like anytime we can recognize the students. Graduations, what a great event. And then the student and staff of the quarters and seeing the faces of the parents as their child is being recognized. That it's all about the kids.
Sure. Here I thought you were going to say hiring our last superintendent.
Well, that was good too, and also our treasurer. First of all, Todd, I cannot say enough of how much I appreciate what you and Eric do. We are very blessed to have both of you in the leadership that we have.
Well, I appreciate that, but I love what you said about anything to do with kids. That's why all of us are in the positions that we're in. Even the first guest today, Eric, as the treasurer, is here for the kids, and it's about the kids. And it really guides every decision we make and everything that we do.
It has to. If not, then we're doing something wrong.
I would agree with you.
And being on school board, if you're not there first for the kids, then why else be on the board?
Yeah, and I think Lebanon has been very fortunate over the last many years to have board members who understand that and get that and are here.
Definitely, they're here for the right reason.
Yes, exactly. So, what do you think has been your greatest challenge as a school board member?
Levies, the financial support. And we are blessed. Our community has been very supportive. But each time it is a struggle. And it's hard to go to ask them for more money. As a school board member and a community member, I don't want to pay more taxes either.
Right.
But when that's the only avenue that we have. So, levy funds. And then helping parents that are upset to make sure they're going through the right channels. Have they talked to the teacher? Have they talked to the principal? We are not the first step. The school board members are not. We're here just as connection between the community and you. And our place is to guide them into who they should talk to.
Yeah, and since you've mentioned that, I should say that currently, right now, we have a great administrative team. I think every administrator we have in the district is, in a good position. They're doing a great job at what they do. They're serving kids, and that certainly makes my job easier as a superintendent, and I know makes your job easier as a school board member. So I just want to give a shout out to our administrative team, and certainly our teachers. We have a great faculty,
great staff,
and a great staff.
And not just the teachers, but all the support staff too.
Yep, absolutely.
From the bus drivers, the cooks, the secretaries. We have a great school system.
Right. I know there are legal requirements to run for school board. You have to pull a petition, you have to get so many signatures and valid signatures.
75 at minimum.
And so on.
Yeah.
But what qualifications do you think a person should possess to be an effective school board member?
First of all, honesty, and to be there for the right reasons. Like I said, be kids first. If you come in with an agenda of your own that you think, well, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to change everything, that's not our role. Our main role is to hire you and the treasurer, oversee the budget, and then be that advocate between the community and you, and as we hear things, to apprise you that what's going on, and then it's up to you on how you handle it.
And I should add, as part of that, it's also the board's responsibility to evaluate
Yes, it
the
is.
superintendent
Yes, it is.
and the treasurer. And so,
Yeah.
if we're making decisions that aren't in line with the expectations of the board, or maybe it's expectations of the community, then it's the responsibility of the board to include that in the evaluation process.
And the goals, and to get our updates from both of you as to how we feel about it, and also how the two of you are viewing your success.
Right. So this is my 16th year as a school superintendent and 20-some years as a school administrator. So I've been to a lot of board meetings, as have you. And I know that school board members do not always agree on an issue.
And they
on the
shouldn't.
issues.
Yeah,
Right.
we should come in with some different perspectives based on our backgrounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you work with other board members when there's a disagreement about an issue?
I think, first of all, you really need to listen to what they have to say. You have to be open-minded to think, okay, they're coming from a different background. They might have a perspective that I hadn't even thought about. And you have to take that into consideration and then try and reach a common ground. To work together, that you're there as a team.
Sure. How difficult is it to support a decision that you don't necessarily agree with? In other words, after debate on a school board,
And the vote is taken?
and the board votes,
Okay.
and a decision is made based on the majority of the vote, which means that there may be some people who voted either for or against an issue, but they're in the minority. So the issue either passes or it doesn't pass. How do you then, a good Board of Education at that point, a good board member, then finds themselves having to support the decision of the board? How difficult is that?
Well, at that point, I think you have to, once the vote is made, and even if it's something you don't agree with, it was the vote of the board and you are a board member. You might have your own opinion about it, but you still support that final decision of the board. It's one voice. And the board speaks as one voice, and the decision is made, you have to go with it.
Yeah, and I feel, I've never been a school board member, but I feel that's the most difficult thing
It is.
that a board member faces, is being in opposition to a decision, but then in a position to support it once the vote.
Once the vote's done, it's done.
Sure. All right. Well, I appreciate that. Do you consider yourself a politician?
Oh, I didn't think so. Now, of course, when you have to be reelected and you have to put the signs out and you have to go through that whole process, I guess at that point I am, but I don't see myself as one. I see more of a part of a team that we're working together to make our school system better. And going to the different events, I try to go to, whether it's a school play or the different sports events, I really try hard to get to at least one event for each of the sports. And I only have two granddaughters. One's in 6th grade, and the other one is in a junior. And not just their events, but other things going on gives me a chance to talk with parents and community members, and then just to be out at the other community events. So I do have an update of what people are feeling in the community.
And I want to compliment you on your ability to make it to a lot of different activities and student performances and athletic contests. You probably are one of the most visible school board members that I've ever worked with. And I know it's important to you to
It is
to do
important
that.
to me,
And,
yes.
and people notice. You should know that people notice that,
thanks.
and it's often, people will often say to me they can't believe how many events that they see you at or run into you.
Well,
In
being
fact,
retired.
I told you before we went on air, I told you that sometimes I think there may be two of you.
I hope not. One's enough.
How do you keep yourself knowledgeable about innovations in education, things that are happening in the education
Well,
world?
I think you do a good job of bringing new things to us. Certainly, our curriculum director, Mark does a great job on making presentations on things that are going on. Like when we did the Spanish immersion, I still get updates from Ohio Education Association. I get emails almost daily from them on different innovative techniques, talking to teachers, their concerns, and there's many right now with education. I don't know if teaching today would have been as a positive career for me as it was.
Sure.
They're facing a lot of pressures.
Yeah, somehow I think you would have handled it.
Yeah, gotta try. But it's still kids first.
Yeah, you mentioned Mark Grayler, who
Yes.
is the curriculum
Yes.
director for the school district. So the board typically meets on the third Monday of each month, but recently the board, I should say new board because there are two new school board members, recently the board changed the start time of the meeting from 5:30 p.m. To 6 p.m. Why did the board change that meeting time?
I think the feeling was that maybe it would make it possible for more community members to attend. And we want them to attend. It's a public meeting. Know what's going on, ask questions, and we're here to serve them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know some people may think that we don't want a lot of people at our board meeting, but I like when there are a lot of people who show up at our board meetings because we have a good story to tell. And as you know, with the finances are covered in one a brief section of board meetings. We typically have great presentations from students or staff members. We talk about the construction project, and it is just a good way for people to learn and keep abreast of what's happening in the school district. And typically our board meetings are an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. And if people are able to attend, we certainly invite you to our board meetings on the third Monday, and a little bit later start at 6 p.m., which maybe gives people an opportunity to get off of work and maybe home and then to a board meeting. So hopefully we will see an increased attendance at some of our board meetings. Well, I want to thank you very much.
I'm glad to be here.
You and Eric both are going to go down in history as the inaugural guests on #OnwardLebanon. So that will always be a special place in Lebanon school history. And just know that, I think I speak on behalf of our community when I thank you for your long-term commitment to the school district and certainly the work that you continue to do as a school board member.
It's been my pleasure and my honor.
Right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the first taping of #OnwardLebanon. I hope you gained some insight into the Lebanon schools and the people and programs that make us great. I want to thank Eric Sotzing, school treasurer, and Esther Larson, a veteran school board member and former teacher, for sitting down with me today. #OnwardLebanon will air monthly here on Lebanon Channel 6. To learn more about the Lebanon City School District, you can check out our Facebook page at #Lebanon City Schools or our district website at lebanonschools.org. Until next time, take care of yourselves and those around you.